Well, Mrs. Merkel, many of my Eurosceptic colleagues have been booing you this morning, but they shouldn't be in a way, because the British should be cheering you. Without you, we'd never have made it over the line with Brexit, and I want to thank you very much for that. And of course, many of these Eurosceptic groups on the right, the centre and the left will come back here after the next European elections in huge numbers, directly as a result of your immigration and asylum policy. Your "we can cope" led to a huge migrant tide, indeed a stampede, that came across the Mediterranean. Young men coming from very different cultures who were not going to integrate. Young men, none of whom would have qualified as being genuine refugees. And I think in many ways, we looked at it in the referendum and we said, we don't want to be part of an increasingly German-dominated European Union, and we certainly don't want to pay the price for Mrs. Merkel's errors. And I believe, having heard you today and listening to senior French politicians over the last couple of days, that for us leaving the European Union is now indeed a liberation. It's a European Union that we're told is now to become an empire, a militarised European Union, an undemocratic European Union, a European Union that seeks to continually expand to the east, a European Union that has launched a new Cold War against the United States of America, a European Union that tries to rewrite history. And I think 100 years on from the armistice, we should be genuinely worried. The idea that this new militarised union is somehow a recipe for peace, I suggest you all sit back and think a little bit more carefully. Maybe you should all reread history. The European project was set up to stop German domination. What you've seen today is a naked takeover bid. So I think Brexit becomes a necessity after this. And for the rest of the countries, Mrs. Merkel, you've had a long, successful career. But your political decision to open up the doors unconditionally is the worst decision we've seen in post-war politics in Europe. Is it not time for you at last to admit that you were wrong? Is it not time for you to say to German communities and many others, I'm sorry for what I've done to you and the problems I've inflicted upon you for many decades to come? You just saw in that video, you just saw 25 years of my life concertinaed down into 3 minutes. Didn't I look young once? I was even quite shy when I started off, you know. But it just goes to show that sometimes the good things in life have to be fought for. The good things in life take time to come to fruition. That the good things in life, in the face of the opposition of the establishment, are hard to achieve, but it all makes you realise, doesn't it, that in 2016, with the Brexit vote and the election of Donald Trump, we stuffed the establishment. We did. And the really good news is that here we are, over a year on, and that revolution that you were all a part of, that revolution is still rolling. It's still rolling across the West. Back in 2000, just 8% of the votes in Europe went to patriotic parties. This year, it is 24% of the vote that is going to patriotic parties, and that number can only go up. And I think the real inspiration now for the future is going to be the man that appeared on this stage and spoke to you this morning. You know, I was very happy to support in any way I could Donald Trump's campaign back in 2016. I now think, with him over a year into the presidency, it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. I really do. I really do. I thought he'd be good, but I got to tell you, he has exceeded all expectations. He's on the way to being a truly great president of this country. And I was lucky. I was fortunate this morning that shortly after he came off this stage, I got the chance to have a conversation with him. And I must say, my impression of him today was, here was a president at ease with himself. Here was a president in good humour. And here was a president at the very top of his game. So there's plenty of good news out there, but we must not and we should not underestimate our enemies. The establishment are still not reconciled with those shock results as they saw them back in 2016. The establishment, in some ways, are fighting harder to damage the reputation of the president and indeed to try to delay, water down or stop Brexit. These people will never stop. And you've seen it here in this country, that now the mainstream media have actually become the opposition. They're not objectively reporting news. 90% of what you see on mainstream media in the States is negative about the president. Mind you, I suppose given the state the Democrats are in, maybe there needs to be an opposition of some kind in this country. Because they kind of haven't quite got their act together, have they? In fact, I'm hearing stories that maybe they'll nominate Hillary next time round as well. Don't boo, you should jolly well hope they do. He'll win by a lot more than last time, believe me. But it's reached a level where they themselves are now engaged in some of the most bizarre conspiracy theories. If you read centre-left broadsheet newspapers in this country and in the United Kingdom, you will be aware that I too am a person of interest to the FBI. I've read that actually I am at the centre of an international spider's web. I am the one person connecting Trump, Putin and Julian Assange. I've been running memory sticks back and forth from the White House and the Kremlin to Assange. I mean, I have to tell you, I hadn't realised I was that important. I really hadn't. I'm told the next time I set foot on US soil, I'm going to be arrested, I'm going to be put in front of Mueller because of my Russian connections. Oh, and what is without doubt is that I've been funded by the Russians for my entire political career. Well, let me tell you, I've never been to Russia, I've never been to Moscow, I've never met a Russian operative or agent, I've never done business in Russia, I've never taken money from Russia. I may be guilty of drinking the odd Russian vodka. But I know from my own part in this story that the whole thing can be summed up by a simple term. It is just fake news, isn't it? It's fake news, and it's fake news to suggest that the president colluded with the Russians in his election campaign. He didn't, but you know what? When this is over, they still won't stop. They still will never accept that their view of the world has been turned upside down. They will keep on fighting. They will keep trying to damage the reputations of everybody involved with the conservative, patriotic movement. So we must not underestimate just how powerful our enemies are. Just think of George Soros. He gets a bigger boo in England than that, but anyway, there we are. That's more like it. You know, that Open Society Forum,
he has put into that $30 billion, not $30 million, $30 billion. And from what I can see, he is attempting to intervene and disrupt in every single election and cause and campaign that is taking place across the Western world. These people don't believe. People like Soros don't believe in the existence of the nation state. They don't believe, as we believe, don't we, in basic patriotism and believing in who we are. They don't believe in national identity. They want us to live in a world with open borders. Boo too. Absolutely. That is what they want, and they're powerful, and they keep trying. And you know, I've sensed, and by the way, this is my third CPAC. I mean,